Hi, my name is Fred. I am the head coach at Yousuli. Welcome to the Epic Endurance podcast, where we take a deep dive into endurance, strength, and conditioning. Today we are going to talk about running performance efficiency. I know it's pretty controversial. I'm going to tell you what I think about it and how to look at this from my point of view to maximize the efficiency at which you're going based on the amount of work that you're putting in. One of my other videos about the 3 pillars of intensities, where basically I explain that there are 3 ways to look at intensities, what we call effort, work, and performance, and how these things are related to one another. I do recommend that you watch it. So today we are talking about running performance efficiency, or what I would say is the efficiency between the work you're putting in and the speed or pace at which you're going. This is different from running economy, which is calculated by looking at effort to distance. I'm going to say some things that are controversial, and this is my opinion as a coach with over 2 decades of coaching experience and as an orthopedic coach and a technique running specialist. Without further ado, let's go. So work is the variable that you can control. Your pace is always the outcome. Work can influence your effort. So if you're trying to go harder, then your effort will go high and your pace hopefully also go higher. When you are running, there are a couple of factors that can change the efficiency between your work and your pace. I'm going to put these into 3 blocks. Block number 1 is going to be the environmental factor. So if you're running uphill and if you're running downhill, then it might not feel the same and you might not go at the same pace. Obviously, muscle use might be a little different, but with a slight gradient, you can see that if you have a, let's say, 2% gradient downhill, you will tend to go faster than if you had a 2% gradient uphill. The forces of gravity play with you and not against you in the sense of going up. Wind might be also another factor. If you're running with the wind in your back, and if you're running with the wind in your face, then this is going to affect your speed at the same amount of work. The altitude also might play. At very high altitude, where the air density was lower, some short distance records were being crushed because of the lack of air resistance, change in the air composition or the air density. The other environmental factors might be the kind of ground in which you're running in. If you run on the beach and the ground is actually absorbing the energy that you're putting inside, then most of your energy is going to be dissipated into the ground and not refracted and help to push you back, let's say. A trail, a road, a track might all impact this efficiency loss that occurs. There are types of ground that are better and faster than others. If you run on trail, you will probably end up running slower than if you were running on the track. Track is a very, very good mix of enough give to absorb the impact, but enough bounce to help you achieve peak performance. That's why we're using it. Now, for number 2, we are going to talk about something that's a bit more controversial. It's going to be footwear. Footwear does impact performance. It does not change the amount of work you're doing, but footwear, through at least two mechanisms that I can think of, will affect the pace at which you're running. Mechanism number 1 will be the weight of the shoes. So if the shoes, again, I'm going to take extremes, but let's say if you're running with army boots and you're running barefoot, then you can see that the amount of energy generated that you need to achieve a certain pace is going to be different, because you're going to require more oxygen to lift your foot and to carry the mass that you're having on each feet. A couple of grams or a couple of ounces can make a very big difference on long distances. If you do 180 steps per minute and you're racing for 2, 3, 4 hours, that's a lot of steps, and therefore this can significantly impact the pace at which you're going. This is a bit it's a bit in between the metabolic efficiency and the performance efficiency, but since it will also impact your pace, I will include it there. The second one is going to be the shoe contribution to leg spring stiffness. LLS, this is how stiff are your legs. It's a bit more than just the leg, but we say the legs. LLS is going to impact your ground contact time. And ground contact time is the amount of time you spent on the ground. The shorter this duration, the better it is, because you tend to move more when both of your feet are in the air. LLS is one factor that contributes to a better ground contact time. As a person who is, let's say, is overbending the knees, when they touch the ground, will spend more time with their feet on the ground. The same way, let's say you're running in Crocs or in something which is very, very mushy. A bit like if you were running on the sand, then the energy will be sent into the shoe and will not be reflected. The ground contact reaction forces will be different. Different shoes have different kind of impact on your ground contact time. There are new carbon shoes, so super shoes, shoes that have a carbon plate, help with stiffness, the same way if you were having springs into your feet. So how much do they help? I'm just going to show you a small example, and for this example, I was doing about 1 kilometer around a suboptimal track made of dirt with a slight incline and some bumps on the road, which drastically affected my pace. We are going to compare 3 shoes. One of my favorite shoes, the Glycerin from Brooks, which are very wide, very, very mushy shoes, very forgiving shoes. The Nusa 15 probably from Asics, which is a much lighter shoe, but without any carbon plates, which I may use more for tempo work. And then a racing shoe, this is the Meta Speed Sky Plus from Asics as well. The way we're going to try to look at this efficiency is by looking at work on one side in watts by using a power meter that we put on a foot. I recommend using the Stride. We'll talk about this maybe in another video. We have the power output, and then we have how much speed we're getting out of this power. Now I did 3 laps. The lap 1 was, if we look at the power, then we can see that actually the second one was a little higher in power, but I was trying to stay pretty much on target. The average on the first of the 3 laps and the last one was about the same. Pace here in miles or in kilometers, you can see again this 4:47 or 8.8 minutes per mile to 7:42. That's a bit over 5% improvement. We have differences in the cadence was much higher with the super shoe because I was bouncier. You can see leg stiffness improved with every shoe. So you can see leg stiffness is changing drastically from 9.3 to 11. So shoes do play a role, and I will in the next couple of weeks maybe show you more example on a treadmill or at the same pace and showing different in reduction in power, but choosing the right shoe for the right event might make a big difference. Now, when choosing certain shoes, some shoes are more forgiving than others, and some shoes have a longer lifespan than others, but some shoes will be also faster than others. So it is important to understand this. Footwear will have an impact, as footwear can sort of replicate again this leg stiffness and help you bounce back a bit more. And then we come to the third part of running efficiency, and there is going to be some nuance there. Running performance efficiency does not affect running the same way as swimming or cycling will do. In swimming, if technique is poor, we're not looking at 3-4%, we're looking at 70% in reduction in performance, or like the numbers can go very, very high. There are many different kind of things at play. First thing is mechanically sound form will diminish the amount of stress put on the structures. That is true in every case. If the person is running with, let's say, a beautiful form, without overstriding, without heel striking, while being pretty stable, the amount of forces that's going to be applied to their ankles, knees, and hips will be much lower than if the person was overstriding and heel striking, where a lot of forces will be applied on the heel, on the knee, on the hip, for example. Now, the impact on health in running technique is absolute, but can be dampened through proper strength training. A person who has more strength will be able to absorb a bit more the impacts and misbehavior that is happening in their uniform. But this has nothing to do with performance. Number 2 is going to be, some people have weird running stances and running very fast. Some pro triathletes run very, very fast, but have very unorthodox, if not unpretty running stances, but are able to achieve very high degree of performance. Their metabolic efficiency might be very high, but that doesn't mean that their performance efficiency is not high. In running or in any kind of sport, when you train at very, very high intensities, your body is trying to diminish entropy. diminish the signals that are not necessarily for the movement in which you're doing. And people can achieve somehow very high degrees of competency into something which is an improper movement and get very, very close to almost optimal performance. For these athletes, changing their gait is a little risky because it will feel very unnatural, and they have learned to optimize the movement that they're doing. So when you look at a person running very, very funny, but being very, very fast, that is okay. Again, from a health standpoint, not perfect. From a performance standpoint, they probably have trained really, really hard, subjective to their own effort to maximize the neuromuscular efficiency that's going on there. And therefore, the performance efficiency is increasing. 3, in terms of running efficiency, overstriding will always compromise speed, because if you put your foot in front of you and you're trying to go forward, then you're sort of braking. 2 is going to be how much of your power is directed to running forward and not pushing yourself upward. When we're using power meter, we can look at this horizontal power ratio, which is the amount of watts that you're delivering into forward movement as opposed to the other things. And the higher the number, the better. The faster you go, usually the more mechanically efficient you get. We tend to become more efficient in running as faster we progress. We can try to enforce a better efficiency. Like we said, we talked about leg stiffness. Leg stiffness, ground contact time, and cadence are going to be pretty important. Now, leg stiffness, we'll talk about it in a minute. Ground contact time is going to be empowered by leg stiffness, by your pace. The faster you go, then the shorter the duration on the ground you have, the type of shoe wear you're wearing, the environment, and so forth. But cadence is going to have the greatest effect on ground contact time. And cadence is a very, very important metric in running, which is very simple and often just completely dismissed. Low cadence is going to decrease the efficiency of your run. It's going to change your gait. It's going to modify, mechanically speaking, how you run by forcing certain structures into more flexion, by increasing the stress you have in your ankles. A low cadence on the treadmill, for me, is a very high risk of injury. I will even suggest to have even a higher cadence on a treadmill. A higher cadence makes use of muscular elasticity and stored kinetic energy into your tendons and ligaments and help you bounce back. Bouncing at a low cadence is less efficient than bouncing at a certain cadence, a little faster. We find that for most people, a cadence at around 180 steps per minute is where things start to get interesting. Now, you might say, well, having a high cadence is tiring, and it is true. Metabolically speaking, the action of raising your leg is going to cost a bit of oxygen. If you raise your leg more, then there's a cost in oxygen. But mechanically speaking, you're increasing the efficiency, and you're going to reduce ground contact time, you're going to improve leg stiffness, and you're going to reduce the risk of energy. There's lots of things to say about cadence. I want to keep this simple. If you just have to remember one thing, like in cycling, a cadence around 180 is a very good target to have. When things start to go below 170, you're probably not in an ideal zone, and it will impact your performance by 1, 2, or 3%, which again can transfer into 2, 5, or 10 seconds per kilometer and much more per mile. For athletes that have issues working on cadence, maybe don't think too much about your feet, think about moving your hands. It might feel very awkward at first. You might feel like you're doing very little steps, but that is okay. You will get used to it if you practice enough. Running with people that have a high cadence will also help you emulate their running form. Then we mention LLS again when we talk about shoes. This last point I want to make is leg stiffness can be improved through various means. Some athletes who are lacking strength will benefit from doing strength training. We're talking about squat, lunges, step-ups. Basic strength and unilateral strength is very important. If you lack the strength to absorb your body weight at each and every step, which happens when you're running, then you're going to collapse. Your foot might touch the ground for 250 milliseconds. During this time, you're going to absorb 2 to 3 times your body weight. Closer to 2 if your form is good, closer to 3 if your form is not very good. If your form is pretty poor, then it's probably going to go above 3 times your body weight in a very short duration, but it will have to absorb it anyhow. So some strength is required for running. When you have achieved a certain degree of strength, what people do when they train athletics, and not enough people do when they train triathlon or other long distance running events, is looking at something which we call the reactive strength index. Your reactive strength index is going to impact LLS, how much power you're able to regenerate in a very, very short time. And like very often, I made something called the reactive strength index, which basically is all about harnessing elasticity. You have a small description here, and what you want to do for this, you have two inputs. One is a time on the ground before the jump and time in the air. Small test you should do is basically a little hop, and then when your feet are touching the ground, trying to hop again as high as you can without overbending the knees. You want to be basically just making a little hop and then trying to hop high and then fall back. You're going to look at the time where from here to there when you're spending on the ground, and then how much time you're spending in the air. You can use your phone, put it on the ground, do it a couple of times. On your iPhone or many things, you can see the number of seconds or milliseconds you're doing this. You want the more precise, the better. So I recommend shooting on a higher frame rate. And here, for example, if I was spending 0.18 second at this point here, so I'm doing my first one, 0.18, and then jumping and then falling back, because gravity is gravity, then we can assume and calculate how high you're jumping and your time, and then I can see how much energy is coming back, and then I can give you a RSI score. You don't need any fancy machines to do that, and then you will have some recommendation. In this case here will be low reactive strength, so not prepared for moderate intensity plyometrics, strength development, and easy plyometrics recommended. Plyometrics are exercises that are all about generating this bounce movement. This video is not about teaching you about plyometrics, but plyometric exercises will improve your RSI score and will improve your leg stiffness, and therefore will also improve your running performance efficiency. So to summarize, that was a long one. We talked about running performance efficiency, and when we mentioned that there were three things that can modify the efficiency between your work, how hard you're pushing, and the pace at which you're going. The environment was one, your footwear was one, and then the last one was certain factors in your running form, including your cadence and your form altogether, and also your leg stiffness, which can be improved by strength training and plyometrics. I hope that this was useful, and I will see you next time.